What's going on? Welcome to this Q300 Catback Exhaust review video. Now, if you're thinking about getting this particular exhaust, I'm going to share with you sound clips. I'm going to show you the exhaust in detail, and I'm just going to walk you through everything that you should consider before you make the purchase, because it is a large purchase. Now, this is just a review video. The actual installation video I did in a separate video, and I'll link to that up above and in the video description, along with links to everything that you see me using. Let's get to it. If you ordered this exhaust, the first thing you should know is that the box it comes in is huge. And also you'll have to sign for it because of the price. Everything will come nicely wrapped inside to protect the finish, and I'm glad because my box came pretty banged up. As you see here, the stock rear exhaust pipe on the STI is one solid piece that goes from the mufflers all the way to the center exhaust pipe where it attaches. This section in the Invidia Q300 comes in two separate pieces, most likely to make it manageable to ship. 99% of the time, you won't be looking at those anyways, but you will be looking at these, and these are rolled titanium tips. These, like the stock configuration, are quad tips, but unlike the stock ones, these are 4.3 inches wide for a much more aggressive look. So let's take a look at the muffler differences. The tips are definitely a huge difference both in size and in the nice blue color of the Q300 burnt tips, although that is strictly your preference. If you don't want the blue, you can get the stainless steel ones, which are usually a bit cheaper as well. If your goal is to add power down the line, well, the Q300 has a 3-inch pipe diameter versus the stock's 2.5 inches. So the mufflers here have larger diameter pipes as well. Half an inch may not sound like much, but it allows you to flow a lot more air once you upgrade the rest of the exhaust as well. The muffler is big on this exhaust, and as you'll see, it's the primary reason this exhaust is not too loud, but I have a lot of sound clips in a bit, so you can hear it for yourself if it's enough for you. By the way, if you're wondering if you can just install the mufflers to the stock rear exhaust pipe, the answer is no. And speaking of the stock rear exhaust pipe, here it is next to the Q300. The larger diameter is very obvious when you look at them side to side like this. The Q300 has a much smaller resonator as well that changes the exhaust note. Here's where you join the two pieces together, and as you can imagine, the hanger here ends up in the same location as the stock one for a perfect fit. You do get all of the washers and hardware for the install, except maybe one. I covered this in detail in the installation video, but if you're retaining the stock downpipe like I did, you have to get one of these kits as well to adapt the stock downpipe's 2.5 inch pipe to the Q300's 3-inch pipes. Again, I have a link to this stuff in the video description if you want more info. So there's a few additional things I want to go over before I go into the sound clips. First of all, Catback exhaust, as the name implies, a Catback exhaust is an exhaust system that goes exactly from the catalytic converter on back. Because it goes from the catalytic converter on back, there's no O2 sensors or anything on that exhaust itself, which means that you do not need to tune your car if you get a Catback exhaust, because all you're doing is opening up the amount of air that can exit the car. But because there are no sensors there, there's nothing to affect the actual tune of the car in order for it to make more power. I'm not talking specifically about the STI, but if your car is less powerful because of a restrictive exhaust, you can gain a little bit by just installing a Catback exhaust, a little bit of horsepower by just installing a Catback exhaust without adding a tune. So I installed the Catback exhaust on this 2020 STI, and I saw no significant gain in power. Now I'll go over a little bit more of that in a second, but the fact that it is a Catback exhaust and there's no O2 sensors and you're not replacing the catalytic converter or taking it out completely means that if your particular state has an emissions test, you will probably pass the emissions test. And there might be some additional laws or whatnot that can affect that, but generally speaking, because you're not removing the catalytic converter, your car's emissions should remain the same and you should be able to pass an emissions test. Now, why is the piping bigger on the exhaust if you're not really going to make any power? We're not really making power because, again, we're not replacing that mid pipe and we're not replacing the down pipe. At least I didn't right now. But the plan is to actually replace those and go to stage 2. So when you do that, the 3-inch pipes that the Q300 has, they're going to be very beneficial to that, because you're going to be able to flow a lot more air, through those pipes than you would on the restrictive stock piping. So while right now it might not make much of a difference power wise, when you do replace that mid pipe and when you do replace that down pipe and you tune your car, not only will the exhaust get a little bit louder, which keep that in mind when you're listening to the sound clips, but you should be able to see a jump in power, which is the end goal. So the big question is, what does this exhaust sound like? It's a perfect segue to the sound clip portion that I'm about to play. The camera settings that I use were on manual mode, so the camera's not doing anything to the sound at all, and I kept the camera placement and the same camera all the same. I'll play the sound clip of the stock exhaust, and then right afterwards I'll play the sound clip of the Q300, so you can get a real reference and a real sense of what it sounds like. Final thing I want to say before I play them, if you're really interested in the exhaust, it would behoove you to listen to these clips on your computer, especially if your computer speakers have a small sub. They actually really reproduce what the exhaust sounds like fairly accurately, and your phone is just not going to be able to play those low notes. So let's get right to that. Me speaking in a conversational tone, going 70 miles an hour with a stock exhaust. Still doing 70 miles an hour, cruise control 6 gear. That's cruise control set to 35. If you're cruising like this and you want to overtake somebody, I'm going to go back down 4th gear and kind of hit the gas so you can kind of get a sense of what that sounds like. So I've had this exhaust on my car for a few months. Again, this is a 2020 STI, and I absolutely love it. Who is this exhaust for? The exhaust is not obnoxiously loud. So if you have neighbors that may present a problem if you install a very loud exhaust, this is not going to be a problem. If you use your car as a daily driver, or if you go long distances, it's not going to be a problem. This exhaust has absolutely no drone. I can drive this car at any RPM, and if I'm just cruising, and I have absolutely no issues at all with the internal volume of the passengers, of myself, and it just sounds comfortable. It's just fantastic for that reason. But that said, you know, why would you buy an exhaust if it's not going to give you a sound upgrade? Well, it really does. When you hit the gas aggressively, it comes alive. The note is far deeper, and you can really hear that Subi rumble compared to the stock exhaust. So you are definitely getting a benefit. You're definitely getting an upgraded exhaust. It's just not going to be obnoxious. And remember, keep in mind that it will get a little bit louder when you tune the car and when you replace the rest of the exhaust components. So if you buy this exhaust and it's just not enough, remember that if you're replacing the rest of the components, that it might just get there for you. Another thing is, because it's not that loud, it's not going to be a cop magnet any more than the car already is. So that's a little added bonus. So if you use your car as a daily driver, if you enjoy having a peaceful drive, but you want a little bit more rumble out of your engine, a little bit more when you hit the gas, this will do it for you. And by the same token, this is not going to be the exhaust for you if you want a very loud exhaust. For that, you might look at maybe the R400, but remember, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So if you go with an exhaust that's much more than this, and you're going to start dealing with drone, and if you're using your car as a daily driver, that can become an issue. Me, I am absolutely happy about the exhaust. I think it was well worth the money I spent on it, and it is a little bit, you know, expensive for what it is, but you have to pay to play, so it is what it is. But it is a very high quality exhaust that sounds really nice. So if you want to see me install this particular exhaust step by step, like I do all of my videos, check up above and in the video description. I did a separate video on that. Let me know what you think about this exhaust. Do you like it? Do you like the way it looks? Do you like the sound on it? Let me know what you think about it, especially if you own it. Check out my STI playlist for a lot more modifications on this 2020 STI. So I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this drive and then head on home. Thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure you give the video a like if it was useful to you, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you can check out the rest of my videos. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next video. Take care.